then and then I'm going on. You know? And some of the stuff will hit you, and and some of it, if it's too deep, I'm not gonna.
And I think that's more the angle that I'm coming at. You saying there has to be context, and I agree. Not everyone can do it. There's some things that look like everybody else can do it, but I'll let that pass. But you're right. There is not a context. You're walking. I forget what train station it was, and it was like a bunch of chairs calling to each other, but they weren't real chairs. They were just like shapes of chairs. And I'm thinking, somebody got paid for this. Somebody got a lot of money, and I think it resonates hard with me because we keep using the words like starving artists.
Yeah, I like that.
And so it feels like somehow some artists are getting a pass and they're not starving. And they're like their stuff is just being thrown out there, and it's like this a big amazing stuff. And then I'm looking at it and like, wait a minute. And when I was at the High Museum and I was looking at this piece, and there was a guy walking by talking to a group of people about what the artist was thinking, and when he did that, and I listened to her for a second, I said, no, he wasn't thinking that, because I'm an artist, and I wouldn't think that at that time when I was doing that. My whole process, a lot of times. As an artist, creating, you're not even thinking.
No, you're not.
It's like it's something that just comes out of you and it happens. So to add a story to a lot of pieces, it's really the dressing. You're dressing it up.
Yes.
And so that's why I was saying that earlier. I don't want to get into a heated debate here, but that's my angle and that's what I'm looking at. A lot of times artists just create, they do something and it just looks great, and a lot of people can recognize it and connect to it and say, dang it, I like that.
We see that interpretation is writers do that all the time, because I've seen writers that have read reviews of their books, and then they'll say, that's pretty good. I wasn't really thinking about that when I wrote the story, but I can see that angle. I can see what where they're coming from, because like you say, when you create a story or when you create artwork, a lot of times you're not thinking about the story behind it. You just get hit by something.
That's right.
And you just put it out there, and sometimes later on, you may look at it and say, and you may see something and you may say, hey, I realized that when I wrote this story now that I was talking about something else. But at the time it was I just had to get this out and stuff like that. And, critics, reviewers, I remember when I was in school, I had to review a Van Gogh painting, and it was a field and a little bird flying over the field, and I was supposed to interpret that. So I made up a page of stuff, I'm like the bird represents Van Gogh's being solitary nature and all this kind of stuff like that, and I'm just like, just bull. And I get an A on it, So it's but there is a context to it, but I think it's only the artist can really tell you what they meant. The critic, somebody told me once that. Because what we do is, which is the side of the brain is the creative side. I think it's the left side of the brain, right side of the brain. They say that side of the brain has no language. So a person who's artistically inclined, they can't explain what they do because they don't have the language to it. But the critic is the person who can explain what we do, because as artists, we can't interpret it because it's coming from that part of our brain that has no language. Therefore, we can't really explain how it's done. But at least that's what I heard. So.
And I also think the other part of it too, most of the audience is not educated in the arts. A lot of people come to the events, they hang out, they snooze, they go, and they're really not there to buy anyway, okay? And then the other part is so many variables to it, where sometimes an artist becomes the one that's getting paid the big bucks because he's the popular, is politically connected. There's always some other angles in there. He was somebody powerful son or daughter, okay? And they get the job. This happened to me many a times where I can come in and run circles around that artist like you see, but he was connected. Or she was connected. You can't fight that. So there's all these different variables. And then people, like I said, they're not really educated about art and what goes into art. Because, we had this long list. It's almost a joke. Somebody posted on Facebook like a couple weeks ago. Do not ask artists these 10 questions, okay? How long did it take? Okay, or this or that. We get all the same questions, don't we, what we do. And it's, I can surprise you. I'm a professional. I can do the same quality work in 24 hours as I do 2 weeks. Okay, I'm going to spread it out how I feel and do, as you write or whatever you do. You take the time to do it when it hits you. But if somebody says, hey, I need you to get that done, and you got 24 hours to do it, you can do it too. See, that's being professional. Okay, but a lot of people don't understand that you have that kind of motor in you.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to ask Floyd, when you do the interviews for the podcast and you talk to artists, how do you search for them? What is it that you're looking for in their career, in their art, or in their message? What is it that attracts you to bring them into the podcast?
I generally like to. I mean, I think I mentioned this earlier about does their art make me ask a question, and I think I start there. And also, this is not to say that. I mean, every artist. I haven't gotten to all the artists yet, so I think we're. So I don't want anyone who's listening.
Unless the ones you've got.
Yeah, right. So I feel like the ones that I've talked to up to now. I think I'm always. My goal is for anyone who's listening to that conversation, who then sees this artist's work, to see it differently, so that they will have known something about that artist that will then inform how they will see that artist's work going forward. That is really my goal. So in the course of conversation, sometimes we'll talk about their work. Sometimes we'll talk about where they came from. We'll talk about the things that help make up who they are, which in turn helps to inform their art. So that's really how I try to approach it. And there's not any one template that I try to go off of in the conversation.
But how do you find it? You know, I mean, what is it that you see? Is there a magic book for good artists or artists that are interesting? Or something that you go and say, you know what, that's going to be the next one on the list that I call for the podcast. Is it good art? Is it art that you want to that asks that asks you a question?
I don't often know how I find them. It's just I try to be observant, and so I listen to other people. I trust myself enough to say, even if I don't understand something, there's a question that I think deserves to be asked.
And that's how they get on your radar.
And so, and so then there are oftentimes artists who I may have followed for a year and just watch what they're doing, and we didn't find the right time to have a conversation. So it's really varied as it relates to that, but I don't have a strict rhyme or reason, but I feel like from a stance of who the artists are, sometimes it's about what they're passionate about. Like sometimes you kind of just know that this artist is passionate about these things and you want to investigate that further. Other times it's just they're making this compelling work.
All right. Neal, when you work with and collaborate with other artists, and even when you had that design firm in Cleveland, what did you look for in other artists? How did you define their good work? And or are you looking for their character, people you can stand being here?
That's a good question. I actually put together a dynamic team, and I almost put my team together the same way the old Oakland Raiders did. Yeah. They got everybody's castaway or rebel type.
The bruiser.
Yes. These people had the most dynamic art, but yet they were not going to follow the rules. And I like that. That was part of one of my prerequisites. I wanted somebody bold enough, that was bold enough to stand up to our clients, and then when we had our meetings, to sit there and push the best idea forward, where egos didn't get in the way. It was about what's the best idea, and we'll let everybody fight it out, and then we chose the best idea. And they were not afraid to go against the grain. We took some very bold moves where people would say, you shouldn't do that. You know, that's you might not want to do that. We're like, yes, we do, because I think the idea is good enough to really take it that far. And those are the kind of ideas that really make it in the world. The ones that where people were not afraid, and they said, we're going to do it this way, and we're going to go all out on this chance. You know, win or lose. That's just like with you. If you go to a gambling casino, you're not sitting there and saying, I want to win halfway. You're trying to, you're going in to win the whole thing, right? Or if you lose, you go home with your head down and try again. I mean, that's just the same way it goes here with this. And that's the kind of team we had, and it worked out very good. I really liked it. And I can't wait to get back to that kind of team again. So I always collaborate with those kinds of thinkers, always.
Mm-hmm. Including the guitar guy.
Always,
Dan.
Yeah. Always, just everybody. I mean, if you can't handle it, I mean, once again, you're judged by the weakest link when you have a business, okay? So if you can't keep up, it's time to go. You need to go do something else, go sell cookies or something, But I want to replace you with somebody that's cutting edge, always.
All right. Milton, how do you choose your artists and especially for your covers? You say you get a lot of good feedback on the covers.
Well, I look for people. Yeah, I look for people that have probably already done artwork that I think relates to what I do. I look for people who have a strong Afrocentric influence in the artwork, or people who I think their quality is good enough and they're flexible enough to where they can incorporate that into their artwork. A couple of artists that I worked with had not done any type of artwork that was African or Afrocentric related. And when I first started working with them, I had to actually give them details and send them pictures and images and stuff to relate to. But since they've been working with me for a few years now it's natural. I send them stuff and they just go ahead and run with it. I'm on the internet a lot. That's where I find a lot of my artists, especially at DeviantArt, looking at different photos there and stuff like that, images there. I work with a lot of digital artists, a few oil artists, but most of the artists I work with are digital artists. But they have to be somebody that's easy to work with too. There are some fantastic artists out there that I don't work with because they're difficult. And when you're making a novel, I've got a time limit. Yep. And I know it may take you 2 years to do that piece of artwork, but I got to let my book out in the next 3 weeks, so I can't really wait for you to do that. There's artists that I worked with in the past that I won't work with again because I love their artwork, but they just take too long. And I can't, as being with a business, I have to be able to move it. But I also expect an artist to bring, when I pick an artist, it's because of their style. Mm-hmm. And I really don't want to have to hold their hands. I just want to give them a concept of what I want it to look like. Right. And then when I get it from them, I want to see something of I want them to put their signature in that artwork. I want to be surprised when I get it. I want to look at it and see something that's far above what I imagine, because they're the artist and they're the master at this. I'm a writer and I can write, but visually I want to be, stunned when I get that artwork from them and say, oh man, this is, like we say down south, you put your foot in this one. I want to have that kind of reaction when I see it. And I'm an art junkie. I love artists. Every day I see another artist that I want to work with. I got a list of artists that I want to work with. But that's what I look for. I look for people that have a sense of a feel for what I'm writing, have hopefully a natural connection to it. Or if they don't, they're an artist that's talented enough or flexible enough to where they're willing to learn and incorporate the concepts that we're looking at into the artwork. And I've had a chance to I've worked with people on, like I said, people on DeviantArt, some artists that have never been commissioned before. But I also met a gentleman from San Diego at the National Black Art Festival 6 years ago. Guy sells paintings, for like $10,000 a pop. And I walked in there and he had stuff that I would consider to be sword and soul type work. And I went to him and I gave him a book and he saw what I was writing and it just connected. And he actually did the cover to Griot, Sisters of the Spirit. Because as soon as we got together, we said we're going to do something together because we had that connection and stuff. So it's mainly just getting that, seeing that they can do the work and they can do it within a reasonable amount of time. That kind of thing.
There is a deadline.
Yeah. All right, yeah. All right. So now check this out. So now, years ago, a partner of mine, we owned a tattoo shop. We used to have art shows all the time at the space. And this one artist, he used to paint real clean oil portraits, and he had this one of Michael Jordan. This over 10 years ago when Michael Jordan was really cool and hot. And now he just sells underwear and shoes. So this painting was pretty big, and there was a guy who walked in, he liked the painting, and he asked how much. And I told him $5,000 because that's what the artist was asking for. Now, I don't recall if the artist was getting $5,000 for his paintings at that time or whatnot, but I know that's what he said he wanted that painting to sell for. So if you see some art, okay, so then when I said $5,000, the guy who was asking said, oh, I can't pay that much. And of course, in my mind, I'm thinking, do you even understand how long that painting took to create, And once you break it down by the hours and so on, if you don't pay that man $5,000, not that I was trying to sell it, but if he doesn't get $5,000, he will be working for minimum wage, and producing this piece. So when you see a piece of art and you say there's no ugly pieces and that there's no bad art, that it's all about the context, does the context make you want to go ahead and pay that money for that piece of art?